Oh,
Well,
hey, can you hear me all right?
we hear you all right. We are actually live right now. So
Oh, hey.
I wanted to
Hello,
make
everyone.
I wanted to make sure that we hit our on time deadline since last week we were like 7 minutes late getting to air. And I figured I wasn't sure when everybody was going to show up to join, so I just wanted to preface this evening's show by letting everybody know that the illustrious Michael Marshall and our good buddy Jeremy will not be with us this evening. Jeremy has a prior commitment, and Michael Marshall, who usually broadcasts from his office in his house, is currently under a wind and chill advisory. And it is approximately 20 degrees where Michael is, and his heater can't keep up with the temperature. So, unless we wanted to see him sitting in front of his screen, just
Nice
spewing out
enough.
steam and shivering, he was not going to be joining us. Now, our good friend Jan, boom, is right there right now. Jan, good evening. How's it going?
Good evening. It's going very well. How about you guys tonight?
It's going well. Now, the big question for the evening is: has everybody been watching the sky?
Yeah, that is such a simple fix, and I don't know why this is such big news. I don't get it.
Well, I think what people aren't really understanding more than anything else is the fact that there is a tremendous amount of inaction on behalf of the administration
That's the part
regarding
I don't get.
regarding this.
Because it's simple.
Yeah, it's a very simple fix, and what can be done now. What I don't understand is how the Pentagon came out today, and who's a General Miley, whatever the hell this guy's name is. He came out today saying we've assessed the situation and it doesn't appear to be a threat. Well, how did you assess it? What did you stand out there with a pair of binoculars?
Well, the way they're looking at it is the path of the balloon and what is it going to go over and take a photo of. But let's be simple.
They can hear you.
I think that's in you, Jen.
Yep, that's
but
Jan's mic picking it out.
Yeah. But this is really simple, guys. It's international law. We have the Chinese have invaded the If we can see the balloon, it is invading U.S. airspace. And as a violation of U.S. airspace and an unmanned object at that, the simple answer is shoot it down. They shot down the SR-71 Blackbird with a pilot for doing something at a higher altitude and more secret than what's happening with this balloon. Just shoot it down.
Well, I don't know.
Well, and it came out tonight that there's a second one.
Of course there is. This is not new. I mean, every country has, whether they have satellites or spy planes or balloons or drones, this is not uncommon or new. The answer is in every country, when you catch it, you blow it up. If it's unmanned, you shoot it down. In more aggressive countries like North Korea, China, Russia, when they see that, they shoot it down with pilots. This is not a story. It's the only reason it's a story is because under the Biden-Harris administration, they have such little planning, they have such little leadership that they can't figure out to do the absolute basic thing, which is just shoot it down.
Well, the thing that I'm curious about is, according to the last report, it said that this thing came in across Canada.
Yeah.
We weren't notified, or nobody knew anything about this thing until it was over the skies of Montana. What kind of cooperation do we have with Canadian military and Canadian radar or anything else going up in Canada that they don't say, hey, guys, listen, there's a balloon up there with a big giant contraption on it 3 times the size of a city bus, and it's heading your way. Where was now? Listen, I don't ever want to. Certain things you don't let the public know because you don't want to have a lot of people yelling and screaming and crying and everything else like that. But when we've gone through the last 2 years, and you're telling everybody, oh, by the way, there's a big giant balloon flying overhead, and we're just gonna let it go. You could have any number of things equipped on that balloon that would keep it aloft for just as long as they want it. There's solar powered, engines on that thing that can, predict and correct its course to pretty much put it anywhere they want to. And if it's high enough in the altitude where it's not subject to certain winds, they can park that thing anywhere they want and drop anything they want from that thing. And this would not be the first time that a balloon was used to drop ordnance on U.S. soil.
Well, that's what they were used for first.
Right. In 1945, there were 7 school children killed in California when the Japanese, in the beginning of 1945, dropped munitions from a hot air balloon of an altitude of about 30,000 feet and blew up in a small residential area, killing a group of school children, and I believe 1 or 2 adults along with them. These things have been used. We've been using balloons for aerial reconnaissance, for distribution of weapons, distribution of chemicals. There's a lot of uses for this. How the military can come out today and say, we don't see a threat, with this balloon. How do you not know it's a threat? How do you not know that there's a high altitude nuclear weapon over there designed to create an EMP over, I don't know, NORAD? Because it's getting close to that area too. It's getting close. It's right over a bunch of military bases where we have the B-2 bomber located.
Well, the easy answer here, Frank, is this was never intended to get to be big news. Yes, I absolutely guarantee you that we knew it from the Alaska stations, and Canada knew about this. We've probably been tracking this all the way through, and they just didn't think anyone would notice. And they were just not telling people because they didn't want them to notice, ask questions, or demand any action. And they would, if the news media didn't pick it up, if the public didn't pick it up with social media and spread it around, then this would have just gone on by and they'd have ignored it. But now they have to have a reaction. And the reaction is they want to downplay it as much as possible because otherwise it requires leadership to make a decisive decision, which will have consequences which they don't understand. We know that from their actions in Afghanistan, Ukraine, including ongoing, Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea in reaction to North Korea and China. And Iran, most recently. They have no clue, and they don't want anyone to notice that, so the easiest way is not to respond.
Well, I remind myself of the line in was Jurassic Park, when the velociraptors keep checking where the electric is in the cage. They're testing the waters. They're sending out, and oddly enough, there's something for this that equates to it called the trial balloon. We've always heard about the trial balloon. Well, we'll see it up and send it up and see where it goes. This is the trial balloon. This is if we can't detect a 200-foot round object flying over our skies and it doesn't cause any concern, how many smaller objects are they letting loose into our atmosphere that can be used for this stuff? They want to see. They want to see what the response of the administration is, how weak and effective they are, and they also don't get me wrong. They're also testing the American people because what's this right now? It's Friday night at 9:08. By Sunday 11 a.m., this will be nowhere in the news cycle.
Well, they're going to toss this out.
Something from it.
Of course, they're going to toss it out because this isn't supposed to be the attention. Again. It comes down to this is a matter of leadership. Everything that's been happening over the last 2 years with the lack of foreign policy is a test of our administration's leadership. And every time that we fail to see a decisive leadership with a plan that understands the consequences, we see a further escalation around the world that destabilizes peace. These nations are you're right, it's a trial balloon. Is there any decisive leadership at any level, or are they playing politics still? Oh, they're still playing politics. They're still trying to talk it down, say it's nothing. We can go to the next stage. We can go to the next level because they will do nothing. This is why we have the world as close to World War III or three region wars, as I believe, as we are, because they have failed in every single instance for 2 years in a row to provide leadership. And in the lack of leadership, you will see rogue nations and nations that do not believe in the United States, Europe, or in Israel, and they will get hyperactive and start killing people, which is what we have seen. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Mark Milley, the general, who I believe is a traitor and should be tried on treason, they are complicit in increasing the amount of violence and death and terrorism around the world and domestically. And domestically, which is something I want to get to a little bit later in the shows, to talk about the terrorism that's happening in our neighborhoods, as we just saw a day ago.
Well, look, as always, we may have our opinions, we may have our thoughts, we may have the solutions that we see fit, but we are not going to be the ones to solve the world's problems on this program, because every time we come up with a solution for one thing, they throw another complete ridiculous thing at us. And like I said, this is going to be out of the news cycle in a couple of days. I mean, if you want a perfect example, who's that little curly head bastard that squandered billions and billions of dollars on all those invested, that Bankman-Fried guy?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anybody hear anything about that anymore? The largest heist in American history, and we don't hear about it anymore. You know, that's gone. That's completely gone. Epstein Island, gone. We're already. It already seems like the media cycle is already beyond the whole Biden classified documents thing. You know,
Well, that's right.
that they sent another search team over to Rehoboth Beach to go investigate what he had at that home. Oh, it wasn't televised. You know, there were no cameras waiting for the FBI to raid that property or anything else like that. They spent days there. Now, we didn't find anything. We didn't find anything. 1,400 boxes of stuff. They didn't find anything.
Well, they didn't talk about what the Laguna Beach murder, which was racist. A black man killed a white man. A doctor ran him over with a car, then stabbed him to death while screaming about black supremacy. Gee, that sounds kind of racist. No, we don't want to talk about that because that doesn't fit the message of Tyree Nichols or the protests happening around our nation, nor the terrorism against our neighborhoods around the nation, because that's not the right message. You have to understand, white people are evil. We can't talk about black people doing as a consequence of telling everyone white people are evil just because of the color of their skin. And when we have these psychos out there that react to that and act on that and then kill people because of the color of their skin, well, we can't let that message get out there. It's all about consequences, folks. I've been talking about it for decades. The consequences are piling up because we have a lot of people who are looking to get reelected, to get the headline, the 15 minutes of fame, to push their political ideology that is trying to intimidate and coerce people to either comply or be completely silent. And it is insane, it is insulting, and it is destructive, which is why I'm so upset about it. It pisses me off.
Well, and we can't leave out that today they came out and said that they're going to send another $2.2 billion, including missiles, to Ukraine.
Wait for you know what? I had a whole video I did on this about a week and a half ago.
Oh, yeah, we're not going to send offensive weapons to, or anything, long distance or anything to you, because that would be World War III. No, but, that is 31 Abrams tanks, long-range missiles, another $2.2 billion worth of stuff.
Yeah, but here's the thing that people should be upset about that. It's not that they reversed their position. It's why. This was all because Germany didn't want to be the first one to put in tanks into Ukraine, because Germany, the United Kingdom, and the United States all said previously, Ukraine does not have the technology or the expertise or the availability of people to maintain these weapons. They're too tech. So that means that we sent them the tanks first, which means we're going to be the first ones to send over advisors. This is what they used in Vietnam. We're going to send over advisors to teach the Ukrainians how to run and fix those tanks, which means we're committed to put troops in to protect those advisors as they teach the Ukrainians to use this, which puts us in Vietnam. And Germany didn't want to be the first one to do it and sucking all of Europe into this Vietnam type situation. U.S. started this. Joe Biden started this whole process. Joe Biden's got to be the one to commit. And that's what they're getting. And when they put in the planes, it's going to be even worse.
We already have Ukrainian troops being trained here in America.
Yes.
We have Ukrainian troops being trained in England. We have Ukrainian troops in Canada, all being trained. There's so many troops being trained here. Who the hell is fighting the Russians?
Mom and pop.
Mom and pop that we equip with fully automatic weapons that we, the people here in the United States, aren't allowed to have.
Yes.
Now, the other question I want on this that I want somebody in the administration to answer. You're going to send 31 Abrams tanks to the Ukraine. Okay. You're going to send these long-range missile systems, which are not just missiles. It's not like they just send over a rocket. It's based in some sort of mobile platform, usually a big giant truck that they have these things launched on. Big, giant 18-wheel style trucks, got big giant missiles on them, launching systems and all the rest of this stuff. How are these items going to get to the Ukraine?
How are them over? Tankers.
How?
Tankers and the C-130 Hercules.
All right. So we're going to send over C-130s, big giant aircraft that Mike, you and I stood in front of at the Stewart Air Force Base.
Yep.
And we showed perspective just how big these damn things are.
Oh yeah,
enormous planes. 31 Abrams tanks. How much does an Abrams tank weigh? That's
20. Is it 10 or 20 tons, as I recall?
Well, let me ask Google real quick. How much does an Abrams tank weigh? All right, 55 tons.
55.
Okay, I'm going to ask Google another question. Hey Google, how much does a Black Hawk helicopter weigh?
Well, that's way less.
13,650 pounds.
About a ton.
Well, that's 6.5 tons.
Yeah.
6.5 tons. So you've got 4. You can get 4 Black Hawk helicopters into the same weight as what you would get an Abrams tank. Maybe not weight, but so I want to know this. If we're able to send 31 Abrams tanks by ship, then by plane, and by rail, and by however hook or by crook that we're going to get them into Ukraine. That also means that we've got to have the cooperation of every nation that we drive through and fly through in order for them to facilitate the transport of these items to the Ukraine, which makes every single state nation complicit in the act of us supplying arms and armament to the Ukraine.
Yeah.
If we can do all of that, why did we leave 22,174 Humvees, 8,000 trucks, 634 M117 armored personnel carriers, 155 armored personnel vehicles, 169 other types of treaded devices, the Bradley fighting vehicles, 169 of them, 42,000 pickup trucks, 33 33 Black Hawk helicopter, M17s, 33 Black Hawks, 43 additional helicopter, and another 120 other aircraft. We abandoned all of that shit in Afghanistan, along with 200,000 fully automatic weapons, 300,000 handguns,
Hmm.
uh,
Ammo.
ammo. Oh, forget about the amount of ammunition that we left there. 176 pieces of artillery
Yep.
left over there, howitzers and the rest, because
Which are all being sold to Russia right now.
right, because it wasn't logistically possible to bring that stuff home. So better to leave it in Afghanistan in the hands of the Taliban and Al Qaeda, which are now selling it to Russia and China.
Yep.
Because they have. How can we justify sending tanks to one country but leave all the rest of our precious $4 billion+ worth of military grade equipment in the hands of terrorists? What do you think is going to happen when Russia decides to finally say, you know what, we're going to drop the hammer on these guys and go in and just finish what we started? And now Russia owns 31 tanks, additional tanks.
That's why they're only sending 31 tanks. That's why they're sending a limited number of Leopard 2s, and there is an equivalent tank from the United Kingdom. Because they know that this is going to fall into the hands of Russia, which means China as well, because they've been making inroads to work together. They know this. And what you're talking about at its core is what I've said. There is no leadership because they have no plan, policy, nor understanding of consequences of what they are doing. And it all stems back to the initiating factor that kicked off the world going crazy was Afghanistan. It's how we left Afghanistan. Because even if they didn't want to take all that stuff, they could have blown it up. They didn't.
I know, but Mike, you are so much more generous than I am. You keep every time we talk, you talk to how they don't have a plan, they're incompetent, they don't know what they're doing, it's a lack of leadership, it's this, it's that.
Yeah.
This is the plan. This is the plan.
I have to, for the sake of the nation, I have to pray and believe that that isn't the plan, because what they're talking about is the destruction of this nation. We will not survive another generation if that's the plan. If this is a concerted effort to do these series of events that have destroyed our trust and faith with our allies. Japan doesn't trust us. They're building their own army. South Korea doesn't trust us. They just gave us an ultimatum. Give them nukes or they'll make their own. South Korea is moving itself from the 7th largest manufacturer of arms in the world to number 4. We have the Middle East is arming. The UAE is the one that's helping South Korea become more armed. They have an arms deal right now. So the Middle East is arming right now. We've got Iran sending over weapons to Yemen directly in conflict with the Obama-Biden administration and the Biden-Harris administration illegally. And the French are the ones leading that protection. They're actually involved in that. Even though the U.S. tried to steal France's thunder, the French special forces are the ones that let us know that Yemen, the Houthi rebels, which are Iran-backed, are getting weapons from Iran. Iran is shipping over drones and missiles to Russia. We are seeing all of this. If this is a plan, then this is literally destroying our nation, because all of our allies are losing confidence in the United States' ability to forget being the police of the world, to even stand by our treaties. And that is destructive. That means we're alone and we are a target.
Well, yeah. And this is what I know, like I said, you're optimistic. You're hopeful.
Sort of.
You try to give the benefit of the doubt. But all I know is I read Rules for Radicals. I've read the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah.
I have read the books that these people in power have pledged allegiance to. And I look at it and I'm like, they're following a recipe. This is the recipe. Everything that they are doing is lockstep in exactly what is called for
Yeah.
to bring this country to its knees. And it's that socialist philosophy that I've said in the past, they talk about how uh, millionaires and billionaires got to pay their fair share. Okay, it's got to pay their fair share, and it's mostly because they always look at wealth redistribution. The rich are up here, everybody else is down here, so we got to break up all of this shit and give it to everybody else, so everybody's here and everybody's nice and even because they want that equity, right? When you start hearing them say we have to forgive student loans, forgive student debt, forgive student loans, we have to leave the border open because all of these refugees that are flooding over the border, they have a right. They have a right to be here.
They're not refugees. They're
I know,
they're illegal aliens.
I know
Because-
that I'm using their rhetoric to paint the
Right.
picture. All the things that they do, all the time, you say, well, we can't afford to do that. It's not economically sound policy to do all this stuff. It's not good for national security. It's not this, it's not that. You'll always hear somebody say, we are the richest nation in the world. We are the richest nation in the world. And all the other nations, we are up here as a nation. Everybody else is down here.
Mhm.
All those other nations are down here. So what do they want to do? They want to redistribute the wealth of America. So it takes us down here and brings everybody here. So there's equity. And
Yeah.
the only way you can do that, the only way that you can bring America down, because Stalin said it himself, America will not fall from a shot out from the outside. It will fall from shots within.
Yeah.
This is the redistributive mechanism being played on a larger scale, where they've trained everybody into the inequity of wealth and capitalism and the inequity of race and the inequity of culture and all the rest of that stuff. And now it's just on a larger scale. So if you extrapolate the small plan up to the big plan, then you start to see, my God, they're doing to the nation what they've already done to the people. They're taking the nation apart the same way they've taken the people apart. They strip away the rights. They strip away the freedoms. They strip away your rights as individuals. They strip away your rights and freedoms as groups. They try everything they can. They can't do on the individual level with enough success to get the entire country to go. So they do it with the nation itself. They defund this, they defund that. They bring all of these mechanisms to its knees so the country is weakened. And then when you have people that are beholden to foreign nations and that believe in the WHO and the WEC and all the rest of this crap, and they all spew the same thing, then it doesn't take much to start realizing, well, why do we have a coin shortage in the United States? Why do we have shortages of paper money in the United States? What's the big push to electronic currencies, to digital currency, and everything else? Because it's the elimination of the dollar. It's the elimination of the dollar as the main currency worldwide. It devalues that. That's why everybody else's money's coming up. We're in the middle of having to deal with all this inflation. Bring the value of the dollar down, world currency goes up, and there's your scale. And there's your scale. And when you start weakening it, this is all that one world government crap.
Well, I understand that argument. There's a lot to all of what you just described, which isn't exactly that. That's somewhat of an oversimplification on some parts, but I get the meaning of it. But let me ask this. Jan, you've been quiet, amazingly quiet, and I know there's a lot about this you have thoughts on. So given the viewpoints that Frank has, that I have, and listening to that, and I know you pay attention to a lot of these details as well, but you're kind of the average person in America in that, this is what I do for a living. What are you thinking? What are you taking out of this? What are you hearing from people?
They've been trying to take America down for decades. One of the things that I want to point out is, did you guys hear a lot about Davos this year?
Yeah.
I didn't see a whole lot about it.
It was out there. You had to look. Like a lot of these things, it's there if you look for it, but you have to know where to look.
Well, that's the whole thing, though. If you look for it, the things that I did see, it's more of the same. Population control. Got to start eating bugs.
Mm-hmm.
Got to wipe out the farmers. In fact, they're doing that in, where did I see? Was it Dutch?
Denmark.
They're no longer to have farms. They're no longer to have live animals. They want digital ID. They want digital currency. It's everything is about to take this country down. They want this one world order.
I get that, but it's some of those things aren't targeted at the United States per se, but the United States is a consequence of that.
They are targeted here, though. They want us. They don't want us to own cows here in the U.S. They don't want cows owned anywhere.
Well,
you've got Bill Gates, who bought up thousands and thousands of acres of farmland. Why? Because they don't want you to grow food. They want their HMO food. They want their processed food. It's like the meat now. You're going to be seeing in stores pretty soon the meat that's grown in labs.
Now, Mike, you got to remember.
How good is that going to be for people's health?
Mm-hmm.
Mike, you got to remember one thing too. You say that a lot of this stuff's not directed at us.
Not all of it.
The words of those on about America being the richest nation in the world and with such a wealthy nation. We pay, what is it, 27.9% of the UN budget.
Yeah.
We're the highest contributor to NATO.
Yeah.
When somebody says, oh, I'm not directing something at you, but damn well it's directed at you. It's directed at us. They can't achieve their agenda for what they want to do with the rest of the world unless they bring America down with it. If America stands alone and America stands strong, we are the only people on the face of the planet that we be able to stem that tide and say, no, we're not going to go along with it. They have to bring us down in order to bring us into line. And the best way to do that is to have these feckless leaders who agree with the agenda. And when you see what they're doing, I mean, why would people be so opposed to homeschooling, to charter schools, to, why would they be so, hell bent on doing these drag shows in front of kids and having all this shit from the counterculture that has exploded in the last 2 years, all of a sudden be everybody's got rights now for this but what about the rights of kids not to be abused? What about the rights of women to be able to shower in a locker room at the gym without being assaulted? What about all that stuff? All this stuff is they just keep dumping it on us because they're trying to do that demoralization. They demoralize the people, and the more they take away from us, and the more that we throw up our hands and go, oh shit, I can't take any more of this. I can't keep up with it. It's happening too fast. Everybody said, oh, is this the hill you want to die on? Pick a hill, man. There's 100 hills out there.
Well, in part, it's because they've trained the youth for generations now. They've been pushing it's called the Overton window. It's basically where the center of the nation is, the moral center, the understanding of the average person. They've been shifting it more and more to the left over and over on the screen here. It's leftwards, right? So that the things that we're doing today are things that you couldn't do 5, 10, 15, God forbid you go back 20 years or more. And to normalize that, which is why today we have people like MAPS. What is it? It's minor attracted people, otherwise known as pedophiles. And that's a norm. They're trying to normalize that. Now, the reason why we're seeing so many of these things hit all at once is partially because of confusion, partially because they're pushing every front they can to as far to the left as they can. And most people only have one or two things that they're paying attention to intensely, whether it be guns or abortion or taxes or whatever it is your thing is. Most people are only following one, maybe two things. And so they're not noticing the others. They're trying to see what they can get past and normalize it. So by the time you start paying attention, it's commonplace. And they're trying to push everything as far so that when people do start pushing back, because the majority of Americans, or well over 40% of Americans, actually about 62%, don't react to anything, no matter how extreme it is. And so it's once you get to that limit where the majority, that silent majority, 40% of Americans who are neither Democrat nor Republican or libertarian or anything else, the independents, when they start reacting, now you know you've hit that line. But you pushed it so far that when they pull back, we're still further to the left. We've gone further into this socialist ideology, this progressive ideology, than we started at. And that's what they're doing here. So they're trying to do that on multiple fronts all at the same time. I understand the politics of it. I understand the ideology of it. And what people aren't noticing is the consequence of that, because the next generation gets trained that this is all normal. This is the way it's supposed to be.
And that gets back to the whole point of why everything that's gone on, especially in the last 20 years, is to bring this country to its knees.
But it's more than 20 years. It's been happening.
Well, I said more so in the last 20.
Well, the last 20 years has been they've taken the mask off.
Yeah.
It's very much in your face right now.
Yeah, I saw Sharon's comment.
Sharon's comment about something happened. I'm watching a video right now on the other screen. I wish I could split it on this one. Some sort of smoke trail and explosion in the skies over Montana.
The only thing I saw was there's the balloon in Montana.
Something happened in Montana about an hour ago. At least that's what it was. At 8:19. Unusual event happening over Billings, Montana, where a jet may have caused an unexplained explosion in the sky. And there's a video.
Shut it down.
I don't know.
I would hope.
Because from what I understand earlier, the balloon was no longer over Montana.
Well, from what I understood earlier, they said that there were many reasons why they could not shoot the balloon down.
There's absolutely no reason
they didn't know where the debris would land. They didn't know this, none of that. How about you don't know what's in it?
It's Montana. It's Northwest America.
Instead of using the excuse that we don't know where it's going to land over Montana, use the excuse, well, maybe the thing is we don't know what's in it.
Well, you don't know because they'll panic people because they'll think about diseases and bioweapons and all that. So you can't say that. But they say, oh, we don't know where it's going to land. It's over Northwest America. This ain't the most populated place on the planet. You don't really have a whole lot to worry about there. This isn't New York City, and they're counting on people not knowing geography, not knowing population densities. So they use that excuse because the average person isn't going to look up what's the population of Montana or North Dakota or Iowa or Wyoming. People don't know. In fact, they couldn't point to that on a map because they've degraded the geography that most students are being taught so much that they don't even know where states are anymore. They could shoot that down in a heartbeat. if they really wanted to. They're
Well,
not.
Yeah, they could do anything they want with it. I mean, they could capture it, they could shoot it down, they could do any,
Well,
It's
I have
ridiculous.
something to bring up, and I wanted to know if you guys checked into it. I tagged you both in a post on in the group yesterday. Did you
Yes.
happen to go read that report on the what is it? The federal gun crime report in 20 years?
Yeah, it's really not a gun. It's a stupid report. It's useless.
It is, isn't it? Once
It's
again, they're
useless.
trying to they flip the narrative to fit what they want to. But
They didn't
people are,
emphasize all the things that are actually important. Notice they didn't mention, oh, we caught all these weapons over the last 20 years. It's about gun crime. What crime was committed? What were they all mass shootings? Were they all mug? Notice they say they were recovered either at a crime scene or in the commission of a crime, which is a very big range of things. Oh, you went in to bust this drug deal. You did a drug bust, and in that room, that building, that area, that car, you also found a gun. Oh, well, that's a gun crime. No, it's not. Oh, there's a big difference between that and saying, oh, this person was using it as part of a mass shooting, that this was used in a mass shooting. They want the fear factor. Again, we're going back to misleading the public, not telling them right information, and leading to a conclusion that adds more fear, which gives the government more power. They're justifying the ATF coming out and saying, well, it's because of these little plastic widgets that we put on a handgun that turns it into a machine gun. I am quoting the ATF when they spoke to Nashville and when they were talking to Columbus, Ohio, when they said the ATF told the public in the news media, WBNS, excuse me, in Ohio, WRKN in Nashville, and told people that if you put a piece of plastic on a gun, a handgun, it's going to literally turn it into a machine gun, which is physically impossible unless you live in the world of Harry Potter and believe in magic. It is stupid. It is only meant to terrify those people. And by the way, why are they making those kind of outrageous statements that every firearm you see
because they do it because they got away with calling assault ARs assault rifles, and people bought into it. They got away with it because they fooled the public about bump stocks.
Yeah. And now this is the next stage, and it's to make people think that the movie, that Hollywood, RoboCop, Rambo, the weapons that you see there are what everyone has, that's the reality. They're targeting 165 million people who don't own firearms. And in particular, if you look at the cities they are targeting, because I actually checked it out. If you look at the top cities in America, they're almost every single one except one is a Democratic held stronghold. And even though many of these are inside states that are red, like Columbus, Ohio, state's red, the city is blue, it's Democrat, and they're telling that Democratic audience that 9 out of 10 doesn't own and are not aware of proper firearm facts, and they're filling their heads with fear, which allows the ATF to make its own laws, which is unconstitutional, and enforce those laws, which is unconstitutional, and deprive people of their rights, which is, again, unconstitutional. This is what they're doing.
And then
I've actually tracked it.
Yeah. Your thoughts on that, Frank?
You don't even want to get me into what the ATF is doing. I'm just completely into, I'm sitting there looking. I have a cousin who works for a distribution outlet of firearms and accessories. And he sent me a picture of the pistol braces that this company has been forced to remove from all of the AR pistols that it currently sells. AR pistols, AK pistols, and whatever whatever the mean, nasty pistol of the month is. They had to remove all these things, and I laugh about. If I have an NFA item, all right, I have a National Firearms Act item, something that's on that list, say a suppressor. All right, suppressors, I got to get a tax stamp for it. I got to go through the 8-9 months. I got to pay the $200. I got to do that. Suppressor prices through the roof because it's an NFA item. How do you know that the NFA item that you have matches the tax stamp that you paid for? How do you know? If you're at the range and ATF happens to show up and they see you with your suppressor, or they see you with your full auto rifle that you're allowed to own, or your short barreled rifle, and the ATF man comes up and says, "Excuse me, potential felon, do you have a tax stamp for that?" You have to have it on your person. How do they know that the tax stamp that you present is the tax stamp for the item listed?
Because they're doing what states like New York is doing now, which is they are tracking every single through all the FFLs
But
and
this is
taking the documents from them.
it's a very simple answer, Michael. It's a very simple answer. I have a short barreled rifle. I bought it. I had to pay $200 for a tax stamp to own that short barreled rifle. How do they know when they see me at the range or in the woods or on wherever I am that this particular short barreled rifle is the one that's referred to in my tax stamp? How do they know?
Serial number.
There you go. Serial
Yeah.
number. You know how many pistol braces have serial numbers on them?
Very few.
None.
Mm.
Not a single one. It's a piece of plastic.
Yeah.
It's a piece of polymer with a little nylon strap around it that goes around your forearm. Okay, so you can stabilize your pistol.
Yeah.
How are they going to know that now that they've given the 120-day grace period, to which today is day 117, I believe, that when you apply and you get your free tax stamp, because they've voided out the $200 fee for this, which they can't do because it's a tax, not a fee. It's a tax. It's called a tax stamp. They cannot void the tax stamp because who's responsible for taxation? Congress is responsible for taxation, so they don't have the authority to make it free. So how do they know? How are they going to know that
They've
the
created
tax
database.
you have is going to match up with the little piece of plastic that you own? There is no way. There is no way. This is an unenforceable edict by a group of people who do not have the authority, legally or otherwise, to turn something into something illegal that was once legal and even defined so by the ATF when they were invented so many years ago.
Well, the ATF has already come out and they have already publicly stated that they only expect compliance to this law, this regulation that they're imposing as if it's law. They're only expecting 30% of the public to actually comply, with another 30% they project that will destroy their these newly classified attachments as NFA requirements. So they're saying 30% of the people will destroy their braces or the little piece of plastic on a handgun, and another 30% will actually get them registered. Even if you assume that that's correct, which it isn't, that means they're expecting 40% non-compliance in the best case. This is their best case scenario. So they know people aren't going to do it. We've seen several states and counties already say they're not going to enforce this. And the enforcement level is yet another problem with this whole thing. But it's It's not about this. This is a gateway. The consequence is what they're looking for, to impose upon the youth, 8, 10, 15-year-olds, to make them believe that this is both constitutional and the norm that they have to live with, which allows the ATF in the future, in the next 5, 10, 15 years, to turn around and say, you don't have a right that you think you have. We can impose any regulation as if it's law and take away your rights. And those kids have grown up believing that's what's normal, that they have this power. They don't know any different. And they're the ones that they're going to be coming after. Not you, not me. That's why they're happy to have 30% compliance, because it's not about people complying today. Those compliance numbers are going to be significantly higher in 10 years. That's who they're after.
Well, I get news for you. If they keep going the way they're going and they keep trying their hardest to dismantle the Second Amendment community, and if you look at I'll put it this way. I don't really have a whole hell of a lot of confidence in the new crop of potential gun owners when it comes to what I say. I see that where we might have 4 out of 10 adult men and adult women today might own a gun. I think that if I look at the generation of kids today and try to predict what the ratio of gun ownership is going to be among those, it's probably going to be 2 out of 10.
Well, I don't think it's that bad. I think the levels will be pretty consistent going forward because, like we've seen in the last 2 years, you have groups of people like who are historically Democratic or Libertarian or even progressive, like Black women, who are 40% of all the new gun owners because they live in high crime areas where we're having more and more defunding of police, a lack of police being hired, lowering of standards of police that are getting inferior officers elected into office. And so they have to protect themselves, and they're driving these people to become gun owners.
All right. Well, just remember something too. Just because somebody owns a gun doesn't mean they're a Second Amendment proponent.
No, I'm not saying that. But
there are millions of American gun owners today that will tell you, I own a shotgun for home defense. I own a rifle for hunting. I don't need an assault rifle. I don't need a handgun. I don't need this. So I don't care if they put restrictions on all those things. I don't care if they don't let you own them. I don't care. I've got my Model 93 Winchester rifle that I use to hunt with. That's all I need. That's all I need. Nobody needs the rest of that stuff. That is becoming more and more and more prevalent. And I fear that even though we have a good number of new gun owners in the country, number one, they're only training enough to get their permits or licenses where required. They're not continuing their training beyond that. And I think, again, they look at self-interest. What's good for me is not good for society. You have a lot of people that don't mind the boot so long as they're the one wearing it. And you have a lot of people who dictate that. You've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, out there saying how she has to ride around in an 18,000-pound armored vehicle because there's too many people with guns.
Well, we just had a Republican woman killed in New Jersey.
Well, you're not going to hear a lot more about that on the news because, one, she's a Black Republican from New Jersey.
Yeah.
You're not going to hear anything about that because New Jersey's got the strictest gun laws in the country. So how the hell did she get shot? She's a Republican, so violence against Republicans don't matter. She's a Black Republican. So she already committed the cardinal sin of leaving the plantation, and she's not allowed to do that.
Oh, yeah, that story's going to die real quick.
So her dying, well, it had to be random. It wasn't a targeted thing. No,
it was targeted.
I know it was. You know it was. The chief of police there knows it was. The media will say, well, that's merely speculative. and the gun had to come from out of state. It had to come from the Carolinas. It had to come from this. It had to be some meandering criminal making his way from the Carolinas up to Maine, and he just happened to, pick this woman to try and carjack. It'll be some bullshit like that. They try,
Okay.
but Miss Dwumfor's story will fade as quickly as this balloon does.
Yeah, it will. But I think there's an undercurrent that's happening here that I'm seeing a lot more of. And by the way, for people who don't know, I have been trying to reach out to State Senator Leah Webb of the 52nd New York State District to get answers about why the government, why New York State needs to have the name, date, birth, sex, location, and occupation of everyone who buys ammunition, not just a firearm. If you buy ammunition for any reason, they have to know where you work. I don't know why. I don't know how that's relevant. It doesn't make any sense to me, but you have to give New York State all of that before you can get ammunition. And I'm trying to find out how that's going to protect anyone in New York State for New York State knowing your occupation and knowing how much of ammunition you bought and the caliber and your job and your date of birth. How is that protecting anyone? I don't really understand it because it's not preventing a crime. It's not stopping someone from being a criminal. It doesn't prevent anything. So I don't understand why they would do it.
But the whole point of it, the whole point of it all, and what we can do is go back and look at any law that has been passed over the last, I don't know, how many laws do we have? Over 22,000 on the books?
Well over.
They're not meant for criminals. They
I
pass
know.
these laws for a law-abiding citizens because they want to abolish the second.
I'm gonna give you the exact reason why all that exists. And you could tell me I'm wrong if you want, but I know I'm not, because I know I'm not. This is exactly why do they want to know? They're losing the ability. The courts are going to see to it that they lose the ability to sue gun manufacturers for what somebody does with that gun. Okay, that they're going to lose that no matter what.
Which just happened in New Jersey. A New Jersey judge came down and said, you can't sue the gun manufacturer.
You can't sue the manufacturers. However, if I decide to go out drinking, I go to my local bar. I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", 275, 280. I could pack a few in there before you know it, I could knock down 6-7 drinks in me, and I would seem perfectly fine. Till about a half hour later, and then I'm shit-faced, okay? But you know what happens after I pound away 6, 7, 8 drinks, and the bartender, because maybe there's 3 or 4 bartenders behind the bar, and they don't realize that I've been massively overserved, and I get behind the wheel of the car, I go up the road, and I kill somebody across the street. You know what happens?
The bar gets sued.
The bar gets sued. The bar gets charged with overcharging me. So why do they want to know how much ammo you buy, where you work, where you live, where you this, where you that, and everything else? Because they absolutely hope that somebody in New York goes and commits a mass shooting after they've bought the ammunition at a local store, so that they say, well, since we can't sue the manufacturers, but precedent is on the road. So if you overserve somebody, or maybe the store should have realized that this person was sketchy, or maybe they should have realized that there was something wrong with this person, because why else would somebody need to buy 500 or 1,000 rounds of ammunition? Maybe they should have done this, because now what they want to do is be able to say, oh, the shooter used ammunition bought at so-and-so sporting goods to shoot up such and such place. So now they're going to use the same mechanism they used to sue the bar owner, to sue the gun store owner, or to sue the sporting good owner, or to sue Walmart. Now, You say, well, surely that would, that would be difficult to do. It may be right. But Walmart doesn't want to have somebody get on the news and say, Joe Blow shot up the club with ammunition he bought over the counter at Walmart.
Yeah, and they're
They
gonna.
they're not going to want the liability.
Yeah,
They're not going to want the liability. So this is what we call a chilling effect.
yeah,
This is now going to limit the outlets to which somebody can legally obtain ammunition. So now your gun owner who says, fuck it, I'm going to Pennsylvania. I'm going to go across the border into Pennsylvania because you can't go to Jersey. I'm going to go into Pennsylvania and I'm going to buy my ammunition where it's prevalent. Well, then they say, well, they bought the ammunition from out of state. It proves that we've got an interstate commerce problem when it comes to arms and ammunition, because it's another thing. This, all that it is meant to chill it. It's meant to frighten big box stores like Dick's used to be able to buy guns and ammo, and Dick's Sporting Goods used to have a beautiful selection of firearms. I used to buy my ammunition from Dick's Sporting Goods because they were 2 blocks away from my gun club. I used to buy a couple of 100 rounds of 22 every week when I used to go compete in bullseye. I used to shoot bullseye every week. You handgun or rifle, you shoot both of them. Then Dick started saying, well, is this ammunition? I need to see a pistol permit. It's 22 long rifle ammunition. Why do you need to see a pistol permit? Oh, well, we need the SAFE Act. We need to see a pistol permit to sell you ammunition. It's not in the SAFE Act. It wasn't in the SAFE Act, but somebody at the time floated the idea that if you bought pistol ammunition, you had to have a pistol permit. Well, it's 22. It's 22 ammunition. It's called long rifle. It's rifle ammunition. Oh, okay. Then they'd sell you. And I said, okay, now let me ask you a question. Now that I just bought and paid for my 22 long rifle ammunition, I'm going to go to my gun club, and I'm going to take my Colt Woodsman 22 caliber semi-automatic handgun, load that 22 ammunition into my 22 handgun, and use it to shoot at bullseyes. Did I just get around your rules? And they had to realize that their rules were stupid. Because when I bought 9mm ammunition, they said, well, we need to see a pistol permit. I said, it's not for a pistol, it's for a carbine. Oh, okay. And then they'd sell me the 9mm. I'd buy 44 Magnum. Oh, we need a pistol. No, it's for my lever action. 45 Long Colt. No, it's for my lever action. Everything. The only thing I couldn't convince them wasn't for a handgun. Would have been 300 Win Mag, and that's because I don't own a 300 Win Mag handgun. Nobody makes one, sadly, yet. I'm working on it. It works.
I get where they're doing. Ultimately, in each of these cases, they are looking at ways to get around the Second Amendment so they can get it past the Supreme Court. And the ultimate goal in every single case when it comes to these firearms is they're looking to chill the Second Amendment, to disarm the American people, and to make sure that people are going to comply as the government overreaches its power. And again, this isn't about you and me. It isn't anyone our age range. This is for the kids who are 5, 10, 15, who are growing up with this, and they will think this is normal. It is normalizing the chilling of our rights and our freedoms, the very reason why we have millions of people trying to come into this country, and why we have 600,000 people as of today, according to NBC News, 600,000 people running around this nation that are illegal. We know they're illegal, and they're running around the nation without any date or any check on where these people are or what they are doing. It is a systematic devolving of the nation, disrupting it and breaking it down as a means of control and power. And that's terrifying.
Right. And it all goes back to the purpose. And you got to remember, too, this nation is going to be really hard. You can probably topple a government, but it's going to be hard pressed to topple a people. So do they want to try and topple the people while you still have a good number of us that are up and ready and willing? Or do you want
to? No, they have an answer for that.
Or do you want to do the long-term game and topple the people when there's less people willing to fight?
Well, I have an answer for that, which goes into the big thing I wanted to talk about what just happened in the southern tier of New York, Binghamton, New York, actually Johnson City, New York, yesterday. There was and this made some of the news regionally, but they've been downplaying it a lot. A former mayor of Binghamton, Matt Ryan, someone who I know, was arrested along with Messiah Andrews, the leader, the supposed or alleged leader of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, and at least 13 other individuals for having a protest in the name of, quote, and I'm putting air quotes here, on Tyree Nichols. This was an act of domestic terrorism. Now, a lot of people go, Mike, what do you mean? They were just protesting. No, this was domestic terrorism. This was purposeful and intentional. And this is how they silence people as they get to having fewer and fewer people who are armed, or at least the wrong people who are armed. They're terrifying our neighbors. They're going to our neighborhoods and they're terrifying people. And they're using the justification of anything that happens that matches their message to do this. So they don't like police and they want to defund the police. How do you justify it now after all the rioting, after all the billions of dollars of damage to cities across this nation where poor people have been left without homes and without jobs? And everyone has now seen the consequence of that. How do you get those people back on your side? How do you continue this movement? You terrorize them. What happened in Binghamton, New York is an example of that terrorism. Progressive Leaders Tomorrow, for those who do not know, they go by the name of Plot, is a more radical leftist offshoot of BLM. They're about half a step away from being Antifa, and it is alleged that some of their members are part of the local Antifa, whatever you want to call it, organization, crew, gang, whatever you want to define it as. And what they did is they announced that they were going to have a protest on private property in the name of Tyree Nichols a week after the event. Why did they do that? So they could get arrested. There's two reasons why they did this on private property. One, they will get arrested. Two, so that they could terrorize the people in the community. They did it at a supermarket. On private property. They knew it's private property, and they specifically targeted 7 p.m. when people have come home and they're going to get the food for their families at the time that people are shopping, so that they could hit a maximum number of people and disrupt their lives and make them realize these guys will come out at any time to attack you. So it's affecting people in their daily lives, disrupting them and putting terror in them, because if you don't agree with their feelings, the Plot feelings, the members of these extremist radical leftist groups, then you are the problem. You have to agree with them. You have to believe that you're a racist, or anyone who's white is a racist, that having police defend you is racism. They went there to terrorize people and to silence people, because if you said this is wrong, well, then they came back and said, well, you're a racist. That's why they did that. And they wanted to get arrested. They did this on purpose to be arrested. That's why they targeted private property when they were told they were on private property, and they were given the option to move a little down the road to public property to continue to protest. They refused, which tells you their only reason for being there was to be arrested and to terrorize the neighborhood. That's why they didn't move their protests that already had news media. They had already notified a lot of the news media, not all of them. They didn't notify me, but a lot of them. They would have had just as much attention. They didn't want that. They wanted the arrest. They wanted to terrorize the people at that supermarket and the neighborhood to let them know that they could get to you at any time. Now, let me add in, part of the people who are doing this, I mentioned two people, Messiah Andrews, who has a history of having these kinds of events. He's already been arrested at a local Columbus Day parade 3 years ago for doing the same thing, overtaking a parade, hijacking it, and trying to scare people during the parade. He's already been arrested in Rochester, New York for second-degree rioting. Remember when there was the Rochester riots where they were going in to businesses and destroying those businesses while people were eating and had no idea there was a protest happening in the city? Yeah, he got arrested for that in Rochester, second degree. And this is all public information. I've reported on this before. The news media has cited this, so I'm not revealing anything. This is all public information. And so he was arrested again. And the other person involved was former Mayor Matt Ryan. Now, I want to emphasize, Matt Ryan is a lawyer. He is a notable public politician who is intimately involved and aware of politics in the southern tier of New York for Democrats, progressives, and the leftists. He is a leftist by his policies, and he has supported that throughout his entire life, the leftist ideology. So I'm not mischaracterizing him. That is his career. That is what he's done in his law business, his law practice, as well as his politics. He's well known for it. And Matt, yes, today went out and tried to turn this around. And this is how they further advance their message by saying, no, you misunderstand. I was just innocent. This is the police. These are the bad guys. They stopped this protest. They did not. They were just there to have 16 minutes to tell people that Tyree Nichols was unjustly killed, which we all knew from watching the video and seeing the news out for a week and a half. We already know that. No, what they were doing is they were demanding 16 minutes of freedom of the public to go about their lives. The reason why they were doing, people, they're like, well, no one's paying attention to us because they don't agree with your politics and your tactics and your messaging and everything that's associated with you. That's why they didn't get the attention. Matt's saying, no, but you should have given up your rights, your freedom, your free time to give it to these guys because they have an opinion. They have a desire. Matt further said, no, I was innocent in this whole thing because I was just a legal observer. Lie. First of all, a legal observer, first of all, an attorney is obligated by law that when they are aware of a commission of a crime or the planning to commit a crime, to notify authorities. He is an officer of the court. That wasn't his client. And he has stated on WNBF News in an interview that he had foreknowledge of this crime. They told him about it. He didn't like their politics. He doesn't like plot, according to what he said in his interview, which is public and available. And I heard it just before I came onto this program. And he said, but I wanted to be there as a legal observer. You can't do that. That he knew it's on private property without permission. It is a crime. He didn't inform the authorities, and he helped in the commission of that crime by appearing and attacking people, getting into a verbal altercation with people who were observing this event happen and disagreed with it. And he verbally attacked them until they would submit to his will. He admitted this in his interview. This is coercion. Now, you could say, well, Matt should be disbarred. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe he should never be allowed in politics again. That's a personal opinion of various people. But at the end of the day, he was helping to terrorize the public and knew about it ahead of time and knew that it would chill the First Amendment. He knew that it would terrorize people. He knew that this would be used to abuse the police, as he did in his interview, to try and justify defunding the police and leaving the public less defended. And he couched it all into the wonderful umbrella of racism, which had nothing to do with any of this. This is how we are seeing these far leftist groups are domestic terrorists. They are doing these things to terrorize people and trying to make you feel bad for saying the honest truth by saying, oh, but if you don't agree, you must be a Nazi white racist, or a racist sympathizer, you're an ist and a phobe, and you're at fault for their criminal actions and their attempts to coerce the public. I don't agree with that. And we need to call these guys for what they are. They are domestic terrorists, whether it's the People's Park in California right now with an autonomous zone, the autonomous zones that have been in Minneapolis and Austin, Colorado, New York, the attempts to have them across this nation that have cost the lives of children as young as 8 in Atlanta, as an example, and 14 in the CHOP in Seattle. We need to call this out, call it what it is, and have these people punished for domestic terrorism because they are terrorists. Whether or not you like the ultimate, yeah, Tyree Nichols, I agree. Absolutely wrong what happened to him. The law is acting properly. They have been fired, they have been arrested, they are being charged, and they are going to go through the system. That's what's supposed to happen. There have been changes in the police force, and that is happening as it should. But that does not justify terrorizing neighborhoods across this nation in that name. That is
Well,
evil.
it's
and we
because
need
of
to call
the
it.
narrative, though. Even though you're right, this was unjustified, and these guys need to face the consequences 100%. It was black officers, and they're saying it was racist.
Because
That's the narrative. It was racist.
well, it's stupid. And again, it's part of the terror. No matter what they do, no matter what the leftists, everything is to advance their leftist socialist ideology, which is why I'm being so clear about this story and why I'm trying to make sure everyone gets to know all the news sources and to be able to see it for yourself, because they're twisting it all the way around. It has to be racism. Otherwise, their ideology fails. It doesn't make sense and it falls apart. They left out the fact that some of these officers were hired only because they defunded the police. They attacked the police. No one was willing to take the job until they lowered the standards. So they had substandard individuals as part of the police, which helped to incite and create this situation. They don't want you to think about that. They want you to obey and be afraid. These guys attacked the public at a supermarket on private property and refused to move, and they could have legally. No one was stopping them from protesting. And I have said it before, I have no problem with a peaceful protest about Tyree Nichols if that's what you want. That's perfectly in your rights. But they didn't want that. They wanted the arrest so they could blame everything on the police to justify having fewer police, which leaves the public undefended and dependent on the government. And they want to be the people in charge. They want to be the ones that say, do this, don't complain, don't think, just obey and comply because they're in power. This is evil. It is domestic terrorism. And even when you have lawyers standing on the side going, but I'm a legal observer. No, you're not. You're complicit. You're attacking people for expressing their opinions, and you're there with foreknowledge of a crime, and you didn't do anything about it. I'm sorry. They all need to go to jail.
Well,
I'm not sorry. They need to go to jail.
What do you think the whole defund the police movement is about?
Terrorism.
It's about promoting these kind of events to happen more often. The less money you have for police, the less you can train, the less you can pay, which means quality candidates are not going to step up to the job. When I was at one police plaza in New York City in 1991 and 1992, and I'm sitting there looking at what the base salary to start was $47,000 a year for NYPD. That's a combined pay and benefits. That's going back quite a bit of time now, 30 years ago. All right. I don't know what the base salary is of NYPD is right now, but I was looking at what base salary is for Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department here in North Carolina. It's horrendous. It's horrendous. Nobody's going to put nobody who is, if you want the most qualified candidates for the job, you have to pay the most qualified fund for the job. You have to pay people what they're worth for what they're going to bring to the job and what they're going to risk. If you reduce the pay, reduce the training, you're going to reduce the quality of the people that are going to apply for the job. The 5 officers that beat this young guy to death all got hired after they lowered the standards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do you think is going to happen when you lower the standards? If you're a car manufacturer and it costs you $30,000 to build a car that you sell for $50,000 and it's a good high quality car and you're making your profit and all the rest of that stuff, what do you think is going to happen when they turn around and they say, we got to start making the cars cheaper, but we got to get the same money for it? And now you put $20,000 into the car that you sell for $50,000. Your quality of your car is down. More people are going to get killed in it. It's not as safe. It's not as efficient. It's not as functional. The same thing with police. The same thing with police. When you lower the standards for police and the standards all, hey, this is a monetary world. The standards all revolve around money. Oh, well, we can't send the officers to the academy anymore for 16 weeks or 22 weeks. We got to send them for 8 weeks. How much you think they're going to learn in that 8 weeks? How much do you think you're gonna put these guys out on the street and they're gonna learn how to be cops on the street and they're gonna learn the short way how to do things, and then shit like this is gonna happen. And they want it to happen.
But
they want it to happen because it produces more outrage, and more outrage. If it bleeds, it leads. They don't care how many young kids get killed. They don't care how many minorities get shot in Chicago. They don't care. They don't care. They want it to happen. They want it to happen because it's all acceptable losses.
But Frank, that's why I say and why I insist, and this is my opinion, it doesn't reflect on anyone else. This is me speaking, and I'll be speaking about it more. No sound bites allowed. I already have been. This is domestic terrorism. This is an intricate plan where we are, and this is definitely an act of collusion. We're seeing this in their locations across the country. They have been planning these protests across the country. They've been introduced violence in these incidents across the country. They have broken the law across the country to instill fear in communities, large and small, through these steps. And part of that step is in instilling this fear. They are demanding every single time any action by the police, even when it's peaceful, like it was in Binghamton, New York. Even though they're going to say, well, they brought in 50 police officers to this event. Well, there were 30 protesters when they didn't know how many were going to show up. These are people who have brought in large crowds to events before. They have been violent before. Most recently, there was an incident where they had to bring in, I believe it was another 50 officers because of a violent action. They arrested one member of BLM, and they wound up with 30 people fighting with police officers. They didn't know if that was going to happen again or not.
And while all of this is happening, and they're taking and using the resources of the police department, what is happening in the rest of the southern tier when you have the sheriffs, the state police, your Binghamton police all responding to this bullshit little pre-orchestrated riot? That means you've got 50 officers not patrolling where they're supposed to be patrolling, where they would normally be the rest of the time. So
endangering women, endangering families, how many robberies, how many drugs, how much crime was done in that same time.
Right. You leave the rest of the city completely vulnerable and at the whim of, guess who? The people who knew it was going to happen.
Again, that's why this is domestic. That's why I claim, and I'm willing to say, this is domestic terrorism. It is meant at every single step, and every consequence of it is meant to cause a fear of the public and compliance of the public by coercion, by force. These are evil people that are couching themselves in the ist and phobe and intersectionality and CRT, critical race theory. They are couching themselves in what they believe are unassailable terms. So everyone is afraid to speak up or to take action because they're afraid of being called, being ostracized for being an ist or a phobe or something.
Well,
No, it is at its core domestic terrorism by radical leftist progressives whose intent, by their own admission, is to destroy the Constitution, the amendments, to destroy the laws of this nation, and to impose their will and their rule of law so that you comply to their desires. This is terrorism. No other word for it. That's my opinion. It is the opinion of just myself. I do not reflect this channel or any other individual in case the censors want to go crazy. And if they do, they come after my channel. It's my voice. That's my opinion.
well,
And I have yet to hear a logical discussion from anyone on the left to tell me I'm wrong.
well, just remember, this goes back to my point before. The people who did those riots, who do you think that they're more mentally in tune with? People like us or people in the White House? People like us or people at the World Economic Forum? People like us or people at the UN? People like us or the people over at the World Health Organization?
Yeah.
Who do they have more? So when you look at them, when you look at what they're doing and you just spelled out their agenda, that's one group, one area. Blow it up.
Yeah. And it's happening across the country. And the people who you left out that they're aligned with, China, North Korea, Cuba.
And that's why I say zoom out. Zoom out. Because that's the agenda that is doing it the same thing, same tactics, but different tools, doing it to the nation as a whole from the highest levels of power. That's why I said when you look, if everything is if it's a microcosm, it's a macrocosm. It's the same shit. It's the same shit on a different scale, but they have to do it local in order to do it national.
Yeah, I could see that. And sadly, it's working, I think. Jen, you've heard what I had to say about it. Am I out of my mind? Am I completely off base? Not that you have to agree with me, but am I just into a conspiracy of my own head, or does it make sense? Jan?
No, it makes sense.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm just checking that.
You've got to look at the whole.
Well,
So I've got another question. It's changing the subject.
shoot.
We know that the State of the Union is coming up.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What are you guys' thoughts on? I mean, I know we've been seeing reports that him and McCarthy met about the debt limit, and McCarthy's looking optimistic about making some deals.
Well, I don't know what Joe's going to say about
I have
the
a
State
good
of the
idea.
Union. I would like for the State of the Union to be broadcast live on Twitter and fact checked live.
It is.
Because now the state of they have the fact checkers over at Twitter. We're actually starting to do a good job on some things. So I'd like to see them fact check that as it's going live. I don't know who they said is going to issue the rebuttal. I don't know who it was. Let's hope they.
It's some lady. I can't remember her name. It's a new representative.
All right. Let's hope she doesn't have to have a drink of water because we know that the media will crucify her for that. I honestly, are we going to bet that Biden has a moment of anger during the State of the Union where he, this thing that he does now, where he says a simple sentence and then he repeats it, screaming and banging his.
No, he's going to do his whisper thing. He's going to do his anger thing. He's going to say that people who don't agree with him are domestic terrorists. He's going to come out and say, if you're not vaccinated, you're part of the problem, even though all the vaccine regulations are being wiped out now.
And he'll have to say 2 or 3 times my daddy used to say.
Well, of course he will.
He'll
he'll make up his stories that he always likes to repeat that there is absolutely no proof to. Yeah.
Right. That his son was killed in an ambush while serving in Afghanistan.
Absolutely.
that he was never married and had a first wife or daughter from a previous marriage. That'll something like that. That he was top of his class, had full academic scholarship. That he won some prestigious leadership award. That he negotiated the release of the hostages from Iran in 1980.
Yeah, which never was true.
That he did that.
He was raised by Puerto Ricans in Delaware as a youth,
while going to the
happened.
black church. He invented the self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, otherwise known as scuba. That he did that. He modeled for the Chia Pet. Once he had for those of you who don't remember Chia Pet, it was the little head that you put seeds on the head and then, sprouted out, looked like hair. He modeled for one of those when he got his hair plugs in. Word is that balloon is not from China. It's Amazon delivering an order of pizza to Michael Moore's house. It just wanted
God
to get
knows.
that'll be when. Thanks, Mr. Jeff Bezos. It turns out that it says Bezos on it, but when it's Bezos upside down, looks like it's Chinese writing. So that's going. Well, the good news is, according to the trajectory, it's headed towards North Carolina. So if it does come down somewhere near the Charlotte area, that was me.
All right. Well,
just letting you know now.
Yeah, well, it's just a great way to cover up for drones that show up in America. They're all with Amazon and to test with Amazon. No, not really.
How often do you have interactions with Cory Booker? Does he ever react to you or say anything back to you?
None of them do. They're terrified.
I want to know why Cory Booker, every time he does one of these selfie things or one of his tweet things, the goddamn camera that he uses, why do I got to look up his friggin' nose? Every time he does it, he does his little live, he does his little talk, his little walk around the neighborhood. He's like, "This is Cory Booker. I rescued somebody from a burning building. I'm Cory Booker."
He thinks that makes it personal. He thinks he's a common man like that.
I was wondering
That's his point. He thinks he's common man by doing that. That he relates to people.
I was wondering why my video looked like crap. I had the wrong camera on.
Well, that's all right. But
I got five cameras on and I had the wrong one.
Well, you're going to see Cory Booker is going to be more because he's looking to run in 2024 along with Governor Newsom and Pete Buttigieg and Kamala, of course. None of them are qualified. None of them are actually even liked by Democrats, but that never stopped them.
You saw Alexandria go to the Dr. Reverend Wright School of Preaching.
Oh God, she's
with her little outburst yesterday.
She's an idiot.
I have not watched that with the sound on. To me, it's like if you want to ever see something funny, go to YouTube and put in the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins in the search engine.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a song that was recorded back in the late 1960s, early 70s by none other than Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
All right. It is a ridiculous song, but it is, if you watch it with the mute on, it's hysterical. It's the funniest thing you could ever. If you're like really tired, you're bored, watch the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins with the sound off, and you'll swear to God it's like where Ayo Jerko over here got her inspiration for that little outburst yesterday.
Well, what do you expect from a bartender who literally doesn't understand the economics that she supposedly got a degree for? I still don't believe it. As to Peter's comment about whether Cory Booker will call Biden a racist and then become VP, he doesn't have that choice because Kamala is already there for that reason, and she's a woman, which is why they didn't pick Cory in the first place, because she's a woman of color and she's a woman, presumably. So that's why he got bounced out. And if he thinks he can go for VP, sorry, Pete Buttigieg is gay. And that's a higher priority than just being black. So he's going to get bounced on that one too. And that's also part of the reason why Governor Newsom out of California is going to lose because he's not black or a woman or a minority. So
He
he's
doesn't
not
check.
gay.
He doesn't check enough boxes. Real
Nope.
quick, Marshall brought up the fact that a judge allowed this week for the civil wrongful
Lawsuit
death
against Kyle Rittenhouse.
to go forward. And that, in Michael's opinion, the only reason why this case has been allowed to move forward is that it's designed to instill fear in people so they're afraid to defend themselves with firearms.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What
Because
they
they
also-
can't get him. He's not guilty. He never committed a crime. Nothing he did was wrong, but they have to try and push it anyway.
Right. Well, here's part two of it is that they know that if they get the trial to go ahead, they'll be able to roll it up, wrap it up, because it's not going to be an immediate thing. They want to be able to use the civil acquittal as a means of justifying more riots down in that area, when the time comes, when the time comes. But it'll be a different kind of riot. It'll be a totally different type of situation than the last ones that Rittenhouse was actually involved in defending himself. But it'll be another tool for another part of the agenda, and that's what that's going to be about.
It's more white supremacy. It's more white supremacy, white man evil. You can kill black people randomly, blah, blah, blah. Even though everyone who was fired upon was white. Everyone who assaulted him was white. But it's, racism. You just don't understand.
Yeah, which moron was it that said it's legal to hunt black people in America? Which one of the
There's
few?
a couple of them.
Yeah,
Joy Reid said,
do they ever vet what comes out of their mouth? I mean, granted, I'll come up with some far-fetched theories out of my head because one, I'm skeptical of everybody. Two, I have no faith and trust in humanity and even less in people. I will literally find a Wolverine in the woods and try to make friends with it and have more faith in the Wolverine not attacking me than I will having faith in a politician telling me that he or she respects my rights.
By the way, people don't know, a lot of young people don't know, a Wolverine is actually an animal. It's not the comic book. It's not a movie. There's no mutants. It's actually an animal.
It's not Hugh Jackman. I don't call him Hugh Jackman. I call him Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman. But it's a people might associate for the younger people, picture Wolverine is like a honey badger, and honey badger don't give a damn. Well, Wolverine's
they don't know what a honey badger is either. So
Well, no, they know.
No,
they know the honey badger from the meme. The honey badger don't give a damn.
Ah.
Well, it's a little bit more vocal than that, but
it's scary. It's scary these days.
So what do you guys think about the House Science Committee coming out saying they want to make the NOAA an independent agency?
Say again?
Yeah.
The House Science Committee wants to make the NOAA an independent entity.
They want to turn it into another bureau, like another ATF, they want to make it another arm of the government because they wanted to not only, instead of being able to say, oh, this is the weather, this is what we calculate, this is what we do. No, they want to turn it into an environmental enforcement arm of the government. So where the EPA takes off, where the EPA can only do certain things because the EPA has to actually deal in the now, in the fact, in the real, they want the NOAA to be able to be used to look at projections and then write and regulate rules on businesses and individuals on their projections of what they think might happen in 487,000 years.
This is yet another level of stupidity attributed to, again, they always like to couch these things in things you're not supposed to complain about because it's climate change, and climate change is indisputable. It's a fact. Well, then you absolutely don't understand what science is by its definition until they change that definition.
Well,
There's
you gotta wrap it up.
huh?
just like that thing flying over Missouri right now, because that's where it is. It's over Missouri.
Yeah.
It's a trial balloon because they know damn well that nobody's going to agree to have the NOAA turn into its own separate agency, its
We
own
don't need
arm.
it.
No. But what you're going to do is they're going to turn around and they're going to wait for the next omnibus bill, and they'll stick it into the omnibus bill because they don't want to say, we're going to shut you can't shut the country down. You can't do this. We got to block the debt ceiling, all of this bullshit. All that. So all the trial balloons that nobody will possibly agree to during regular session will all get stuffed and rolled up into something later on called another omnibus bill. And then, lo and behold, with people not even realizing it, boom, there's another federal agency.
Well,
and now it got voted on. Now it went through the proper channels, even though nobody
that's the problem.
did it.
That's the problem. We keep expanding the government for no need, and we're wasting our money on things that are improperly described to the public. Like Jan mentioned earlier, we've got another $2 billion going over to the Ukraine. We're never going to stop this. We have no return on this whatsoever. There is no benefit to us doing this at all. I have asked this question to people on the left all the time. I've asked this to people, and it's not that I don't think that Ukraine should fight against Russia. I do. Let them fight against Russia. Absolutely. Why are we putting in 71% of the GDP of the Ukraine? We literally have paid in 2022 71%, $113 billion. In 2019, before the economy of the world shrank, the GDP of Ukraine in any one year was 159 billion. We just paid 113 billion, 71% of their annual GDP with no end in sight, and we will get none of that back. That's money that's gone. That's money. That's more than enough money to feed every child that is in poverty in the United States, and and take care of the homeless problem in terms of buildings and providing facilities. We could do all of that and have money left over. But instead, we're sending it to the Ukraine for a war we shouldn't be involved with, that we will never get a return for.
Fuck the American people. Fuck them. Fuck them. They got short memories. They're going to vote for who we tell them to anyway. And then if they don't, we rig the election so we get the outcome we want. Fuck them. It's all part of the agenda. Let me ask you a question. Do you really think that Putin couldn't put an end to this thing tomorrow if he wanted to?
Of course he can. I've been telling people that since the same people who told me it's a 30-day war are the same people who don't understand he could end this anytime he wants.
Right. And not by pulling the troops out. He could go in there and
just actually put in his real serious troops.
The real people in there. Right. You got to understand something about the Russian government is a lot like the Chinese government. They don't care how many people they send in to die because there's a billion more where they came from. Maybe not quite a billion in Russia's case, but they're sending in the fodder. They don't care about the ones that they lose.
He wants to train.
Right. Send them in. He don't care. Why do you think this is becoming as protracted as it is? Because we're paying for it. If the United States said from day one, listen, this is some Balkan bullshit that you guys are going to have to figure out on your own, and you're going to have to negotiate a peace treaty, a settlement, or whatever, or capitulate. We can't get involved. We can't do nothing. We'll send over a couple of boxes of DiGiorno's pizza, feed your people a little bit of whatever. That's as far as we can go. It would have been over.
Oh, yeah, Putin, a long time ago.
Putin, or if he's still alive, because we haven't seen Putin in quite some time. He may very well be dead from some of the reports we've seen. Whoever is in his shoes, successor or whatever, what's a great way to bleed America dry? What's a great way to do it? Put their resources in another front and bleed billions and billions of dollars from them. You got a flyweight boxer throwing jabs at a super heavyweight that he can't reach his jaw and pray for a knockdown. The super heavyweight's just going to stand there arm's length, just throwing the jabs. That little guy can't hurt him. Little guy can't do shit. When the super heavyweight wants to lay it down and finally club at that little guy, he's gonna, but he doesn't want to. They're enjoying the living shit out of watching America get bled dry for our resources, for our money, for our military equipment. And believe me, the Russians would very much love to have 31 Abrams tanks that they could add to their arsenal.
Well, they're looking at the Russians are looking to look at this from international policy, which is why no one ever asked a single question in 2019. Joe Biden was not asked about international policy. In fact, in the one debate with Trump that they were supposed to cover international policy, they dropped that, completely dropped that subject. The fact is that they have been looking at this for a long time. They have planned this out. He has enabled Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, 4 nations that do not like each other and have no commonality on any of their goals, any of their worldviews. They hate each other. And they are working together today more than we have ever seen before because of the Biden administration's lack of leadership and the hodgepodge way that they're trying to deal with the Ukraine, and that's leading into everything else escalating. They know this.
I got an update here. I got an update here. You guys are gonna laugh at this one. Beijing confirms balloon is Chinese, says entry into U.S. airspace was unintended.
Right. So they have no way of just, it's about to enter U.S. airspace. Let's detonate it.
Okay, now that it is in U.S. airspace and it was unintended, can you please provide us with the proposed flight track and trajectory where was it supposed to be going and for what purposes other than atmospheric testing, which they said. Oh, and as far as, Mike, what you were talking about a minute ago,
yeah,
maybe Biden lives up to that thing. He really is a uniter.
For everyone else, not for America.
He's united everybody against us.
Well, I think that was one of his intents. I think that was part of the intent when he was with Obama.
Again, why?
Because it has always been about, you can call it redistribution or destruction. They are turning the United States into a banana republic. Right. I mean, if you're looking at our spending.
If you want to bring the rich down, you got to bring all of it down. Everybody who's rich, every country that's rich, the rich countries got to come down. And this is all part of that agenda.
Yeah, and and I know there's people who will say, well, we should give the benefit of doubt to Biden. He's a smart man. He's never been smart. He hasn't worked a real job in over 50 years. And I know Agent Black is with us over in the UK, which is about 7 hours ahead of our time. So middle of the night for him, or actually beginning of the morning for him. So I'm glad he's with us. While I cannot officially say that Biden is on a Chinese payroll, what we can say is that Hunter Biden absolutely was accepting funds from corrupt governments around the world. And it appears, and all the evidence seems to be stacking up, that Joe Biden was getting a piece of that. And that he was aware of it.
Hunter just came out and admitted that the laptop is real, but yet he's trying to sue from anything else coming out and happening.
But we've already known this for years. And it's so frustrating. It's the way that we see, it's really upsetting.
I'm just laughing because all I keep doing is saying I just keep buying brass, buying lead, I just keep buying.
Yeah.
I just keep buying.
And people should, because it's getting stupid, and we have less protection and more forced compliance. That's what the government is offering us today. And that's pretty much whether you're talking about establishment Republicans, which is not the same as the Freedom Caucus, establishment Republicans, and the Democratic Party being led by the progressives, Hakeem Jeffries. They are all about compliance, authoritarianism. They are against the principles of the Constitution in all of their actions. We see that with the ATF. We see that with their proposals for the NOAA. We see that in their increasing the IRS by 87,000 agents and making them armed. We are seeing a change in this government towards a more authoritarian point of view, a dictatorship that is being introduced. And it's kind of ironic. Remember when we had Star Wars Episode 3, which is super political, and they were like, well, when the Emperor was being ushered into ultimate power, then Padme goes, oh, that's how democracy ends, with cheers and adulation.
With thunderous applause.
Thunderous applause. That was it. And here it is. What are we seeing today? This is exactly what is happening today. They wanted to say it about Bush. Bush never tried half of this crap that we are seeing from Obama and Biden and Kamala Harris, the things that are being done by the progressive left today. It is all about cheer us as we are committing acts of domestic terrorism, like in Binghamton, like being authorized by groups like Progressive Leaders Tomorrow, BLM, and Plot, in our face, telling us, we want to destroy your country. Omar Ilan, AOC, Cori Bush, Anna Presley. These are all Hakeem Jeffries. They all want to destroy our way of life to be able to oppress us.
And just to give you the deal of the day, everybody go to Palmetto State Armory, PSA.com, Palmetto State Armory if you can. They have right now at a fantastic price the Masterpiece Arms Defender top cocking 9mm pistol with a 5.5-inch barrel. They're fantastic guns, great for self-defense, great for home defense, maneuverable. Not the best trigger in the world, but they're pretty good. Maneuverable, compact, up to a 30-round magazine. You can get a 50-round drum with them if you want. $429 from Palmetto State Armory. Get yourself one. I'm sorry, that was my cheap plug of the day, but I'm looking at that and I'm looking at my pile of credit cards, so I'm thinking, I said, damn. Damn. I should really think about getting one of those.
Yeah, convince the missus first.
I have something coming this week. That even though, according to the doctors this week, I'm in need of both foot and back surgery, and not as mobile as I could be, and I haven't been out to the range. I have to get to the range this week because something wicked this way comes.
No, I can only imagine.
Something very, very wicked this way comes. Our good friends over at 5150 Rifles are sending, and I will put a photograph of this up on the Liberty First Foundation. I'll put a photograph of this up. They're sending one of their brand new designs, AR-15s, the Evolve rifle platform, with two uppers for it. One in 223 Wild, which is the 5.56 barrel that you can shoot either 223s or 5.56 with it, and an identical appearing upper in 300 Blackout. And from what I gather, I've only seen photos, and I was given a phone call of how they're coming. They should be here Wednesday. So I will be as giddy as a schoolgirl until then, clamoring for it. So hopefully by the next time we're all together next Friday, we're going to preview, we're going to do the premiere video of our range tests of the brand new Evolve rifle platform from 5150 Rifles in both 5.56 and 300 blackout with Swamp Fox optics.
No,
And
didn't I?
Swamp Fox optics, along with Optimum Parts Group backup sights, and 50. I'm just I'm giddy. I'm giddy. I've been waiting a long time for this.
Speaking of ranges and stuff, Frank, can you message me the name of that target thing that you put on the end of the gun with the app that you like? I haven't been able to go shooting yet because the indoor range out here has been temporarily closed.
Okay. The product that we have, you know what, Jan? We're gonna take care of that. We're gonna take care of that for you.
I appreciate that.
We're gonna see if we can't.
Yeah, with it being winter and everything, you don't want to go outside and shoot. And like I said, the indoor range out here has been temporarily closed. So I've been doing my practicing, but it would be nice to be able to actually pull the trigger and, start doing that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, what we're going to do is I will see what we can do about getting you, because this is the product in question. It's a Mantis Mantis simulating system that helps you out with this, and we're going to see if we can't get one of these sent to you.
By the way, Agent Black, you can't have any of this. You're in the UK. Sorry. It's all, I know you'd love to have it all. You can't.
Well, Agent Black is able to own a shotgun, I believe. Yeah, go get a shotgun.
Some cases, not always.
You got to get a shotgun. And I tell people, tell my wife, if you hear something, just take outside and, let off 2 blasts. Anybody who's there is going to come running. Yeah. The last thing you want to do is let off 2 blasts from a shotgun off your porch. That's a friggin' felony. Don't do that, people. Don't listen to Joe Biden when it comes to gun advice. Black, if it's possible, why don't you see? I don't know what you got over there in your personal collection or your arsenal. If you have the option of getting yourself a shotgun, why don't you look at getting yourself a Drillings, a 3-barreled shotgun? I would say 10 gauge, 12 gauge, 410. Because if you can get those, you can get an insert for one of those that you want to know what's really ridiculous about living in England with their gun laws versus America?
Well, there's a lot.
Oh, there's a lot, but here's the one that I think is probably one of the more stupid. I gotta wait 10 months, spend $200, and spend 4 times what the price should be in order for me to get a suppressor. You can go into any sporting goods store in England and buy a suppressor over the counter for the regular retail price that they should be sold with, no paperwork. Suppressor.
Yeah, but their laws make no sense about when it comes to firearms. Their laws make no sense.
No, neither was. But all right, listen, folks. It's 10:57. Do you know who your children are? Oh, I don't have any. I have one.
Used to be a saying.
It used to be a commercial. It used to be a PSA here up there in New York. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Now it's like it's 10 p.m. Do you know who your children are? Because
what they are.
Or what they are. God, yeah. Do they know what they are? Yeah, my child is a fire hydrant. That's what he identifies with. But listen, it's getting on 11 o'clock. We've been here for 2 hours tonight. Jen, as always, it was a pleasure to have you join us tonight. We're going to do our very best to get you. I'm going to send you the information for the Mantis system. I want you to go to their website and look it up and see if it's something that you think would actually fit the bill. Because there are a couple of other products that are out there that may be better for you, may be worse. We want to make sure we get you something that's the exact right one that'll give you the most benefit. But the Mantis is probably the one that we'll do our best to get for you. Vash, once again, thank you for for livening up and bringing a certain level of calm, demeanor, and intelligence to an otherwise rip-roariously stupid show.
No, you're funny. I love it.
Like I said, Mike does such a great job up in the Southern Tier. He truly is one of the last journalists in existence out there. One of the
I'd have to agree, and I would say definitely turn into a show. 2:30 Eastern every Sunday. YouTube. No sound bites allowed.
Well, thank you guys. I try my best. We're growing. People are paying attention, even with the suppression.
Next time you talk to Larry, tell him you know a big goofy.
Oh no! Actually, I was going to save that. I did talk to him, and I've got good news.
What's that?
He said yes.
Cool.
Larry's going to join us. There's more details. I was going to save it until I told you guys first after the show, but yeah, Larry's going to come up.
We'll work that out. Awesome. That would be good. We get Larry on the show. For those you don't know, Larry Sharp. He's the perennial libertarian candidate for governor of the state of New York. He's a good guy, good head on his shoulders. We do have some differences, of opinion between some of our points of view, as you normally would, but we respect Larry in the regard that even though he has different points of view, he's true in his convictions about his point of view. And we can respect an opposing position if it's truly felt and believed. That's why I said we might disagree with Bernie Sanders 1,000 ways from Sunday, but Bernie Sanders, with the exception of him owning $4 million in real estate and having a couple of million in the bank and complaining about the millionaires need to pick. You notice as soon as he became a millionaire,
he became billionaires.
The billionaires need to pay their fair share.
Yeah.
But at least he believes his convictions. We don't like Ralph Nader, but he believes in his convictions. These are people that we could have a conversation with, because they're not fence sitting, jumping from one side to the other. They believe in what they think. Like Robert Kennedy Jr., RFK Jr. Not a big fan, but he's true to his beliefs. We could have conversations with that. That's what we're missing in America, is the fact that we can have disagreements but still have respect. We can still come to some meeting of the minds. Even if we can't meet on ideas, we could at least walk away with a handshake and a smile, as opposed to a smack in the face and two fingers up. Yeah. We don't need to have that discourse. We can have honest conversations, and who knows, maybe you win some hearts and minds. But with Larry, if Larry can get on here, or we can get on his program and bring some of a flavor of our unique taste to his show, that would also be pretty funny too. But let's get him here first.
He'll come. He's willing.
Let's get him exposed to us before we expose ourselves to him. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. As always, I'm Frank Johnson, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation. Jan Raines down below, thank you so much for joining us. Michael Vasquez, the dragon of the Southern Tier. You guys all be safe, shoot straight. Remember to go to l1f.us, and please, if you can, join up with our membership program. We got a little screwed this month on our premium content because YouTube took all my shit down that we put up there. But we're going to make all that back up on Rumble. Full explanation to awesome videos coming your way. Like I said, do for us what we do for you, and that's be supportive. So you guys be safe, shoot straight. You have yourself a good night tonight.
Good night, everybody.